Chapter 4, Calypso. Hope you're all doing well and feeling like this epic odyssey with Ulysses is worth it. I think this chapter we get back onto like calm seas a little bit. This plant's getting in my way. We get into calm seas a little bit after, like, it was quite a tumultuous time, wasn't it, when we were on the beach with Stephen? It was pretty hard going, and this chapter the waves calm a bit and we meet a new character called Leopold Bloom. And for once we start a chapter and it sets the scene and we know where we are. Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowl. What a description of an opening line of a character. So this guy, Leopold Bloom, he's the second guy that we're going to be following throughout Ulysses. So generally in the book we're following Stephen Dedalus, who obviously we were introduced to in chapter 1, and we're also following Leopold Bloom. And there's going to be like parallels between these two men. Like one's like a young poet, young poet and sort of academic, and Leopold Bloom is older and more experienced and in a completely different situation. He's married to a woman called Molly, who's a singer, and I can't remember from our first reading what his occupation was. We don't find out in this chapter, I don't think. So we'll see. But it's a brilliant observation into the world. It's like he's literally flung open the door to Bloom's home, and here we are sat in his kitchen. And Bloom, of course, he says in the first paragraph, most of all he liked grilled mutton kidneys, which he gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine. So there's Joyce having a bit of a joke, like the fact that you would actually want to eat something that smelled of piss. It's a bit like that Sleaford Mod song, isn't it? The stench was so good it smelled like decent bacon. You get it, don't you? You identify it with that. Well, I do anyway. So yeah, it starts with this, and you just have Bloom at home, and Bloom shouts up to his wife Molly, who's in bed. She's a singer, he's in bed. Do you want anything from the shops when I go out? She says no. Like, he goes into the shops and he walks down to the butcher's and he gets a kidney for his breakfast, which he buys. And during this time, again, it goes straight into the same thought process style that we saw with Stephen Dedalus. Not only are you walking down the street with Bloom, but you're also in his thoughts, in his head. But you'll notice his thoughts are quite different from Stephen's. Stephen's seem quite existential, the thoughts, and quite dark, and quite sort of what you would expect from sort of a poet or a writer or someone who thinks quite deeply, whereas I feel that Bloom doesn't have that deepness of thinking, and his thoughts are just like, what we're going to have for tea, I wonder if they've got this, that sort of thing. Like, it's not as deep as Stephen, which is quite interesting. And he goes into the butcher's, and he comes across as a bit of a lech to me. Like, he's behind this woman in the queue, and he's like, there's one kidney left, and he's like, I hope she doesn't buy it, and she doesn't, and he buys it. And then I'll just read from it here. Mr. Bloom pointed quickly to catch up and walk behind her if she went slowly, behind her moving hams. Pleasant to see first thing in the morning. Hurry up, damn it, make hay while the sun shines. She stood outside the shop in sunlight and sauntered lazily to the right. He sighed down his nose. They never understand. Sod-chapped hands, crusted toenails too, brown scapulars in tatters defending her both ways. The sting of disregard glowed to weak pleasure within his breast. He's a bit of a perv, I think. He's always on the lech for like women, and even though he's married to Molly, like that's how I find him anyway. So he gets his kidney, he comes back to home, and he starts cooking this kidney, and the interaction he has with his cat is amazing. I mean, I'm a massive cat fan, but yeah, he loves his cat, and it's so cute to see him like feeding his cat, thinking about his cat and how his cat is. And he cooks his kidney, then he takes Molly up a cup of tea and some breakfast in bed, and then they have a bit of it, they chat about stuff. I'm not going to go through it line by line because that's what the Sparks notes are for. They all have what the plot of the chapter line by line, but he does Molly says that she can smell something burning. He's like, oh shit. So he goes downstairs, rescues his kidney, and then he sits in the kitchen and he eats his kidney, which is grim really, I think. I mean, I'm veggie, but like just the idea of eating fucking organs is minging. But like, yeah. And it's one thing that I always think about Bloom. If someone said to me, tell me some things you know about Leopold Bloom, I'd be like, yeah, he likes eating like organs and offal and all that shit. And now whether that says something about his personality, I don't know. Should we be reading deep meaning into that or not? Or in like the 1920s, is that just the shit that people had for breakfast? Please let me know. Yeah, and he makes a cup of tea, and you know, here you go, I'll read a little bit of this. Having set it to draw, he took off the kettle and crushed the pan flat on the live coals and watched the lump of butter slide and melt. While he unwrapped the kidney, the cat mewed hungrily against him. Give her too much meat, she won't mouse. Say they won't eat pork kosher, here. He let the blood-smeared paper fall to her and dropped the kidney amid the sizzling butter sauce. Grim. Interestingly enough, this book, right, was banned in 1922 when it was released, and because of the sexual content and also the sort of bodily functions and stuff that was like distasteful to them in those days. I noticed it's like when Bloom's walking through town, like he's thinking about it's another one of his thought processes, and I think he's thinking about the Jewish nation, and he's talking because there's a lot of like anti-Semitism and I don't think Bloom is an anti-Semite, unlike Deasy in chapter 2, but he's talking about that. And what does he say? He says, where are we? Let me have a look. Maybe it's here. Yeah, there we go. A bent hag crossed from Cassidy's clutching a nagged bottle by the neck. The oldest people wandered far away over all the earth, captivity to captivity, multiplying, dying, being born everywhere. It lay there now. It could bear no more. Dead, an old woman's, the grey sunken cunt of the world. I mean, when you think back to when it was written, I mean, people write anything nowadays and say anything, but when it was written, I think, you know, you can kind of understand that this was quite a book that really would have raised eyebrows and people would have like had something to say about. And interestingly, again, the end of the chapter. So I'll just going back to a bit of like narrative stuff. Bloom burns his breakfast, but he just rescues it, and he eats his breakfast with the cat mewing, and he feeds the cat a bit of the paper that the kidney's been in for it to lick. And he sits down and he reads a postcard from his daughter Molly, and you just get this impression that Bloom's just a nice normal guy. He's married, he's got a daughter who lives away, she's written to him, she's having a good time, and he's wearing black, right? That's another thing I forgot to mention. He's wearing black because he's going to a funeral. And there's a parallel there between Stephen Dedalus, who is also wearing black in mourning for his mother. So we're setting up two central characters and both of them are wearing black. So that's just probably worth pointing out there. Then we go to the end of the chapter. He's had his breakfast. He says, right, I need to go and have a shit, basically. So he goes outside and sits on the toilet. And that's another thing, like, yeah, that's probably why it got banned in 1922. Before then, I can't, you know, like when you read books like Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre, did they ever have a section of their book where someone went for fucking shit and it like actually spoke about it, not just mentioned it in passing, but in detail, this shit. And let's read the shit bit, right? Because everyone loves a good shit. Okay, where's the shit bit? Quiet. So he's sat right outside on the toilet and he's reading. Quietly he read, restraining himself, the first column, and, yielding but resisting, began the second. Midway, his last resistance yielding, he allowed his bowels to ease themselves quietly as he read, reading still patiently, that slight constipation of yesterday quite gone. Hope it's not too big. Bring on the piles again. No, just right. So, Costive one tabloid of Cascara Sagrada. Life might be so. It did not move or touch him, but it was something quick and neat. Anyway, so there's a little bit at the end of the chapter where Bloom takes a shit. It's pretty easy to understand this chapter. I think you're not going to have too much problems with this. Bloom seems a likeable character. Let me know what you think of Bloom in the comments. Tell me how you're finding it. But I think that this is fairly, hopefully you've got to grips with the idea of you go into people's thoughts as well as what's actually happening. So yeah, we've done chapter 4. Like, we are fucking sailing, people. Tell me what you think.